Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you guys for joining into our live stream this evening. My name is Jessica Jefferson. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a qualified supervisor. I am the CEO and clinical director of SW Social Support. I would like to welcome you to our live for May's Mental Health Awareness Month. I wanted to thank CARE Inc. for inviting me out, and to our pastor, S. Robert Stewart, for the vision to see the need for this in our community. This evening, I'll be going over different ways to help first responders, healers, and helpers, and really the general public to deal with the pandemic that is COVID-19. We've been hearing so much and really been inundated with information regarding how we take care of our physical health, how to remain safe, things like washing our hands, wearing personal protective equipment, and things that are very beneficial when we are outside in community with others. But there hasn't been very much said and touched on as it relates to the social, emotional impacts that the social isolation can have and is having on people, especially first responders, those that are in the limelight, those that are doing the work, those that are showing up every day, who are leaving their homes in order to serve. So when we go somewhere like Walmart, Target, Publix, there's someone there to ensure that we have what it is that we need. And we wanted to touch on this as the Mental Health Association, our national organization that gives us the topic for this year, gave us tools to thrive. And we wanted to come and talk on that from a mental, emotional, and spiritual standpoint as the church, but also as licensed professionals. So I do have people in the audience with me who are also licensed professionals and are in the field as well. So if you guys are seeing us on the live stream, you guys can go ahead and put some questions in. They'll be fed to me so I can answer them as they come up. Hello, live audience. So the first thing I wanted to go over as it relates to the healers and helpers, those that are caring for one another, is to give ourselves grace. So in my practice, I go by the superheroes therapist. I help other healers and helpers heal 24/7. This is what I do. And self-care is my zhuzh. It is the thing that makes the work that I do worth it. And what I found so much is that there's been so much death and dying, and the hope that used to be in my clients' eyes and the hope that used to be there when we were able to do our work and really save someone is slowly fading because we're dealing with something we've never dealt with before. So the implications that it has on the mental and emotional wellness of a first responder are grave, and people feel like they are failing. Suicide rates are climbing, depression is through the roof, but there's a need to continue to show up. People who work in these roles have decided and devoted their lives to the healing and helping of others. But what happens now when what's always worked is no longer working? In times past, people that had asthma were on nebulizers. Young people weren't dying and needed to be intubated left, right, front, and center. And we didn't have like this airborne, invisible monster, if you will. So now we're going into spaces and we're still doing the same great work. We're still giving it all we can, and we're still losing lives. We're still not able to come home and hug our children. We've got to go through and rinse off and shower. And our norms are disrupted. As adults, we've been grounded. I feel like I reached a point in my life where I should never get grounded again. And the government has now grounded me for my safety. So little things like going for walks, leaving my house, being outside have definitely impacted me. I'm blessed enough to be able to do my work from my laptop and go home and work. But for those that are in the thick of it, that are losing lives day in and day out, what I've been telling people is to give yourself grace. If you went into work that day in such a way you did the very best that you could, give yourself the opportunity to say, hey, I'm just a human. Before I'm a nurse, a doctor, or whatever your role is, whatever your title is, insert that in there. Before you're a mom, before you're a dad, you're a human. So if we can give ourselves the grace that this is our first day doing this is our first time having a pandemic of this magnitude in most of our lifetimes, to say, hey, you know what, I'm doing the best that I can. So the first thing that I would say for everybody is give yourself some grace. So in this, and I said this, whatever I'm going to say is not a blanket statement for everyone. It doesn't mean that everyone's got to do it this way. Find a rhythm that works for you and create a lifestyle that helps you feel like you're able to really live and thrive. So what grace looks like is being okay when things don't go as you planned. Grace also looks like taking breaks, and that can be just 30 seconds to a minute. Grace looks like taking deep breaths. Grace looks like giving yourself the opportunity to cry. We are dealing with unprecedented complex grief. And what I mean by that is grief that we generally look at as like the death of a loved one, right? But there's something that we call expectation grief. People expected to graduate. People expected to get married. People have to be able to go and leave their homes however they've decided to and live their regular quote unquote loss. Grace gives you the space to honor that loss. While the loss of life is real, and it's a real grief, it's a real problem, it's something you have to kind of go through and process. All these other losses, the loss of human contact. I have my father-in-law is ill in Maryland, and he's a vulnerable population. So he feels like he has lost the ability to communicate and deal with his children. So now we're getting creative. We're holding up signs and we're having drive-by birthday parties, but we're social creatures. We were designed to be in community. So the loss of community as we know it, the loss for your children who are needing to develop socially and emotionally and verbally in communion with their peers is lost, because what your 2-year-old needs to go through the whole day, more than likely you don't need, and whatever he's doing is exhausting for you. Honoring the loss of your free time, honoring the loss of your space. Maybe you had a sacred space in your home that was meant for crafting, and now that's your office, and you've lost the ability to move in your home as you've desired. That room didn't die. Your child's school didn't die, but the role that they played is now a loss for you, because what was filled in that you chose to fill it with, you no longer have the choice. You've lost the opportunity to choose. And in grace is honoring, okay, this is difficult. This is not what I signed up for. I'm not even good at math. What is Common Core? Like the issues that we're going through that are everyday issues that would normally not be a thing, that would normally not be a stress, that would normally not exacerbate things that were not going well for you, is now a thing, is now a problem, is now a stressor that feels like it's the thing that's going to make you pull the last of your hair out. We're questioning God. All this stuff is happening because we really don't understand. So when we have a loss of life, that's horrible. But when we have a loss like this that we don't necessarily understand, because the school is still there, your job building is still there. We didn't lose it. It didn't get blown up. It didn't burn down. All of the stuff is still, now trying to go through and wrap our minds around that loss requires some grace from us. It requires some, okay, well, today was hard. I'm going to shut my phone off. I'm going to just lay down and sleep because I'm tired. Or maybe I'm going to honor that my sleep schedule is a little bit off right now. But just kind of letting what's happening for you happen. That's grace. It's saying, okay, I'm not used to this. It's asking for time. Husband, wife, boss, whomever, I need a moment. I need a moment to collect myself. I need a moment to understand, what is and what's happening. I need a moment to be able to just take a break. I need a moment to turn my camera off on Zoom. I need a moment to just kind of be at peace in my body. I want to talk about that. What does that mean, Jess? What does it mean to be at peace in my body? So that leads me into my second thing. Another way to see if you're extending grace to yourself is a body scan. And if you are a person who is extremely anxious by nature, who suffers with panic attacks, this is not an activity that you want to be doing in a silo and or by yourself. But if when you get a little overwhelmed, you notice, hey, maybe I have a little rapid heartbeat, just kind of going through and from my head, do I notice any tension, to my eyebrows, all the way through your body, to the soles of your feet, and stopping as you go along and noticing what's going on. Maybe you notice on your way in, and you work at a hospital, on your way into the office, you cross the light before your job and your palms get sweaty, you're irritable, all of a sudden your belly is bubbling over and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Maybe you're having some anxiety, and it's okay to sit with the negative emotion. It's okay to say, hey, what role is this anxiety playing in my life? So I've been telling my clients, I have some clients that are super like hand washy, protect their kids 24/7. And in January, I'm like, okay, well, is this a realistic fear that your kid's going to get sick and die from dirt? Is the fear that your kid playing outside is going to really harm them to the point that they need not play outside? In January, the answer would have been no. In March, April, and May, the answer is yes. So that anxiety that may have been maladaptive or it did not serve you well in January is now protective and keeping you alive. So there are times when we scan our body and the anxiety is normative, meaning that it serves the purpose. The things that are happening in your brain, that cancel, abort, mayday, that fear, that desire to fight, flight, or freeze is a normative and positive and healthy response. So, okay, well, I'm anxious. Is the anxiety, we reality test it. Is the anxiety real? Is the source of my anxiety real? Is this going to make it worse if I worry about it, or is worrying about it going to get me to where I need to be? That's still part of extending grace. But we're identifying, okay, when I feel anxiety in my body, where is it located? And is it serving me? So if anxiety is causing you to speed in traffic, it's not serving you. If sadness is causing you to not get out of bed and not shower, it's not serving you. If sadness surrounding, man, I really wanted to be at my friend's graduation. So and so died, and I wanted to hold this person's hand at the funeral, and I wanted to be there. That is a normative expression of grief. That is a normative expression of loss. If that becomes something that is lasting weeks and days and months, that is problematic. But understanding, since we've never seen a day like today, and that's really more relevant in this year than it has probably ever been, that we've never been exposed to this level of unrest. Like, nothing that was certain. This was not on my vision board for 2020. I had no plans to be grounded in 2020, locked in my house. So when we think about all the things that we planned, we talk about having choices. We give choices as adults. We can pick our political party. We have all the things we can go through and we can pick. And all of this stuff is happening. The things that are very simple, like I choose to go to Walmart at 9 o'clock. I can go to Walmart, but it's going to be closed. I have to now really revamp and reframe how I live my life. And that's a loss. Like, for me personally, I love late night walks. I will leave the office at like 10 o'clock on a Monday. I'll walk through Ross and get all my steps. I'll leave Ross at midnight and I'll go to Walmart and I'll do my grocery shopping. I'll get all my fruits and veggies because there's nobody else there at midnight. They're stocking everything fresh and I'm good. That's no longer an option. And it sounds very small, but when you think about if your outlet was doing that, how now then do you cope? Because you're in the stores, everyone's there. It feels like outside feels yucky. If you've been outside, it feels heavy and sad when you leave your house because there's so much fear in the air. There's so many things going on. And if you were already prone to fear and sadness, those things can be exacerbated. And it's okay to say, hey, I need a moment, and take that moment, whether that's just sitting in your car with the windows up and listening. I'm a huge Jim Gaffigan fan. I love all things Jim Gaffigan. And I sit and I listen to him for hours on end because sometimes you just need to laugh. Finding ways to laugh. If you've lost a person, a place, a thing, you have, people die, memories do not. You have the opportunity to go back and reminisce, watch home videos, spend time together, find reasons to laugh. If you're like my husband and I, we go through old photos of ourselves and there's jokes for weeks. We can just laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. And spending that time to really allow yourself to feel. So I don't know anyone that really likes to cry, myself included, but everyone that I know showers at least once a day. So and this is it's a secret. Don't tell nobody, right? So my number one coping skill for when I feel like what the world, I cry in the shower. I don't like to be asked how I'm feeling. Is everything okay? Who cries when everything's okay? I'm clearly not okay. Don't ask me silly questions. But little things like that, where you can go through and create a routine that says, hey, I'm not going to tell myself that I can't cry, that I can't feel, but I'm going to create an atmosphere that's conducive to how I need that to happen. Some people are okay crying in public. Some people are okay with having someone present and asking those questions. I prefer not. Personally, it doesn't work for me. So I know that when I go and if I'm having a bad day here in the office, I will drive home, cancel crying, and I will go cry in the shower and come back so I have that moment. And I give myself that grace. So find ways you can literally go through and input grace into what works for you. Something else, I'm a whole brain nerd. I love the brain, right? So smells, sights, and sounds do a lot for us. I am a smell and sound person across the board. What you can do and what I have done, there are little aromatherapy diffusers you can put in your car that plug up and go through and make everything smell really, 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 really good. You can do that. I play sounds everywhere. I got a white noise machine everywhere that I go and really identify what works for us. So when we think about safety and how to cope through a pandemic, I was like, what do I tell people? Because really and truly, even as experts, we're living this as everyone else is living it. There's no book that I can go back and say, hey, when this happens, we're going to do this. There's no framework for dealing with a pandemic on this scale. There's nothing that I can go and pull back from and say, hey, we're going to do this. What I can say, though, is that a lot of things that we're already doing work. It's about figuring out how they work differently for us now. How can I pull things from behind me that have worked in time past in order for me to use them today in the here and now to get what I need? And that sounds like really like big. I'm going to break it down really practical, really applicable, really sustainable. What does your schedule look like? Where can you input peace, pauses, time to yourself? Because that's what self-care is. Self-care is saying life is going to happen, there's going to be an impact, but I'm going to mitigate or decrease how much that impact is. I.e., you get in a car accident, your airbag goes off. Your airbag is decreasing the impact that you're going to have possibly on a windshield. So looking at the things that we can do, because I don't know what's going to look like when the quarantine lifts. I don't know what's going to look for other healers and helpers, other small business owners. I don't have an answer for what that is going to look. But what I can say is that there are some things that we have access to now in the here and now that can help us. And there are tons of resources on the internet that are like solid. I'm not talking about like your friend's Facebook Live. I'm talking like actual real live, empirically based, evidence-based resources that are going to talk about how to care for yourself during this pandemic. The Mental Health Association of America has 5 or 6 different worksheets to go through and gives you tips. I'm going to go through some of them. The worksheets are titled Owning Your Feelings, Finding the Positive, Eliminating Toxic Information, Creating Healthy Routines, Supporting Others, and Connecting with Others. We're going to go over briefly from each of those things that I think we can take with us today and implement that are going to help decrease the level of, it feels like yuck. I'm going to call it yuck. That's not the clinical term for it, but I'm going to call it yuck so it's very clear for everyone at all age range, right? So it's not going to be this big highfalutin using all my big words. It's not helpful. I really want something that you guys can take away from this, because the media is bogging us down with information. There's so much about everybody's dying. It's unsafe. There's so much fear in the air. And my hope this evening is to really instill hope. Is to say, hey, you know what? This is really, 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 really bad. And there's no minimizing of that. The loss of life is ridiculous. The loss of employment, just the loss in general on a whole is ridiculous. There's nothing that I can say is going to minimize what that is. But if we can mitigate or kind of like put a buffer between how bad it is and how bad it feels, how bad it impacts us, we're winning. So when we look at owning your feelings, I'm looking at the screen so I make sure I don't miss the things that I have. I've got notes everywhere. So I want to make sure that I give you guys the things that really resonate with me. We go back to allowing yourself to feel. I am a therapist, right? Guilty as charged. But before I'm anything else, I'm a Christian. I'm a human. Before I'm a Christian, anything, I'm a human, right? It is so natural for us to avoid bad feelings. I don't know. It was like, you know, I'm just going to lull in this sad. But sometimes, like I said earlier, we need to allow those feelings to tell us why they're there. Sadness, why are you here? Anxiety, why are you here? And I really mean like checking in with yourself. Like, what is this going on? What's serving it? And then not ignoring why that thing is there. Because our emotions don't just show up because they're bored, right? There's something physiologically, the way that we are fearfully and wonderfully, our body sends out ambulances. So when we're in danger, our amygdala hippocampus are like ambulances. I was like, I'm coming to the rescue. And they put out different chemicals in our body so that we can really go through and deal with whatever's coming our way. So I'm not saying to ignore it. I'm saying to feel it, honor the feeling, and understand why it's there. You may not be able to deal with it. So let's say, for example, you're a medical professional and one of your patients dies. I'm not saying to sit on the floor and cry. I'm saying that sadness and grief and loss and even anger and rage in that moment are appropriate. Because if you did everything that you still lost a life, it is appropriate to feel handicapped. I'm not saying don't feel that. I'm saying honor that feeling. Take a moment. Say, I'm going to take 5 minutes, whatever you have an opportunity to, particularly as things are slowing down a little bit more in the medical field from my understanding from the clients that I serve. Take that time. Do not ignore how you feel. And when you have a moment, talk it out. You got to debrief after, like in our office, when we do a lot of crisis work in the community, we go out and we deploy to like all types of stuff. We deploy when Parkland happened, like we deploy when bad stuff happens. We never leave a deployment or an incident where we do not debrief. Even that's in the car, look, anybody needs to cry. Anybody need ice cream? Like, and it doesn't have to be like on your keto-friendly diet. Like, it needs to be as a human. What do you need? Who needs a hug? What do we need? And we will sit down, if it's hours or 20 minutes, and just ask, what's going on for you? Was any of that hard for you? And we allow that debrief to happen for days. It's not like, okay, well, today ended and we're not going to do it anymore. Find someone, a community. a therapist preferably. And if you don't have insurance and you have a job, there are EAPs, there are tons of places you can go to get help. And if you're going to talk it out, you probably need a vocabulary, you need words to identify what it is that you're feeling. So building your emotional intelligence, building up that toolbox of words that express what anxiety is to you. So maybe apprehension for you feels like anxiety. Maybe surprises for you feel like anxiety. Identifying in this moment, in this season, how those feel, because how it might have felt in January and how it feels now are probably completely different as far as the severity or how much of it you feel. So really figuring out how to go through and build those things. And there are tons of things we can scale our feelings on a 0 to 10. How much is it? There's tons of things that we can do. I personally am a fan of journaling, getting it all out, writing it down. If you're not a writer, voice note it to your cell phone. There are ways on ways on ways to really be able to get the information out so that you are able to at least deal with what's going on. Another thing that we've lost is the ability to control things. And I don't know about you, but I am like on my schedule, things are to the 15-minute mark. I need things on my calendar like that. So when things just hit the fan and I can't control, I need to find a sense of normalcy. And a lot of my clients need that as well. And a lot of my friends and family also. But if we look at that, what's a routine that works for you? So maybe you used to be able to go to Dunkin' Donuts in the morning and get your coffee. Now you can't go to Dunkin' Donuts and get your coffee because you have asthma, or you don't have to go through in a row. Whatever the barrier is to that choice, what can you do to replace it? How can we reframe that? Can we reframe it? Okay, now we're saving money. We're making our coffee at home. Maybe you get to buy that expensive espresso machine you've been wanting for years because now you're not spending money on Dunkin' anymore. And finding a routine and a schedule, things you can kind of make that will make you happy throughout the process in order to care for yourself. So for me, that looks like, and that's looked like, I work overnights now. I literally get up like 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I work into 9 o'clock in the morning because there's less noise at that time. I don't like watching the news. I don't like listening to the president. I don't like listening to the medical reports. It stresses me out. So I've had to say, okay, how am I going to acclimate to this? I've closed my morning sessions off and I'm now working in the evening. Do not try today to take everything in your house and turn it upside down. Start small. Find one thing, one moment, one task that you believe will help with your mental, emotional, or spiritual well-being, and do that. Because as things begin to change, the last thing that anybody needs is to have a constantly changing schedule, 85 things to do, and then 42 things to change in that 85. Now we're at 117 things that I got to get done in order to get to my next thing. So we're adding more stress. So when I say like literally one small thing, maybe my existing habit in the morning is I like carrot juice, guilty as charged. So I know that when I get in the morning, I don't want to do that every day. So I might go through and do a batch of carrot juice, put it together, and then have that for me to come back to. It's still what I enjoy doing. Maybe you like cold brew. Maybe you would brew a large thing of coffee in the morning. Maybe you need to just have your kids' schedule lined out on a board. You need to buy that board. Like, do things that you're already going to do and find small ways to make changes. Something else on here that I thought was so good that is really, really, really simple. I'm going to read it verbatim from the MHA website from the worksheet because I think it's so good. It says make swaps. Think about the things you do during the day that aren't so healthy and swap them with better behaviors. For example, if you feel sluggish in the afternoons and eat sugary snacks for a quick pick-me-up, try taking a brisk walk instead to get your blood pumping and endorphins flowing. Or if you find yourself having a few alcohol drinks after a stressful day, try sipping hot tea instead. For me, it's as simple as if I wanted to have soda, have water instead, or have a little bit of soda. Like, take a harm reduction model. Don't change out your whole life. There's not time to try and go keto. If you weren't working out before, you don't need to be doing 85 hours of home workout, and you like something that you can sustain. So then it's be over here. It's like you quit, that you failed. So find things that are going to be sustainable for you outside of when this changes. And let your swaps be, don't punish yourself. Like, we already feel punished enough. I feel punished. My staff feels punished. People I talk to feel punished. Like, I didn't make COVID come here, send COVID back to his mama. I want to go outside, right? So we already feel punished and restrained and prohibited from what we can do. Let's find some small things that we can say, hey, you know what? I really want to do this. I'm going to do that. And even if it's the small thing, instead of me having a whole box of pizza. Maybe I'll have 2 slices of pizza and have another 2 in a couple of days. Like, we don't have to restrain and restrict ourselves. So when we talk about making swaps, just find small things. Like, if you like to read and your kids are driving you crazy, get that same book on an audiobook, play it in your Bluetooth while you're taking a shower. Give yourself, it's not saying you have to take your reading time away. Your kids are like wet gremlins and are taking over your life and they want to play all day long, don't take naps. You're asking you, what you told me my kid was good. You lied to me. I've been with him all day long. I don't know what this, where's this monster you sent home to me? Like, and people are having these real things, or they're like, man, my kid is so bright. I can't put them on the TV all day long. And learning all of those things as we make these swaps and care for ourselves. Super important. Another thing that I absolutely, it's called a reframe. I'm going to explain it to you real simple, like real basic terms, right? So right now my glasses frames are clear. They have a blue light filter on them. If they were rose colored, I would see things through a rose colored lens. A reframe is simply the opportunity to look at something from a different lens. So while this is a pandemic and it is a global tragedy at minimum, right? What are you experiencing now that is a strength? What is the silver lining in this? And if a cloud is over for too much, what is that silver lining? What does that look like to you? How do you identify it? And how is it helpful? So I've had to learn, while my husband has taken over our living room with his work, he got monitors everywhere. My silver lining is I get to say, baby, are you hungry in the middle of the day? And we can still have lunch together. Outside of March of this year, I've never had lunch with my husband more in the middle of the day, just have conversation. And those things are important. And those are things that we would not have had access to without this happening. And I understand not everyone is safe in their home. Children are being abused, women and men are being abused, sexual violence, domestic violence, intimate partner violence, all that stuff is also on the rise. But if that's not your story, and even if it is your story, what is a positive thing you can pull from that experience? What is working well for you? What is something that you have access to that you didn't have access to before? And spending time thinking about that and really marveling and being grateful for that one thing. I can complain, my husband's taking over the living room, all of this stuff. But the fact of the matter is I've gained so much more. I've been able to watch my husband honor God on his job and really help businesses. When they call and they have a problem, he will get in trouble for staying on longer to make sure the problem is solved. While that's horrible for promotions and horrible for work life, that's a great example of Christ to say, hey, I'm going to do the right thing even when it's not popular. I didn't have that experience with him in his work environment before that. I've watched my husband leave home to do stuff for church even when it's unsafe. My husband hates grocery shopping, like hates it. I have breathing problems. He has left and gone grocery shopping for me every week since we've been doing this. And those are small things, but those are also things I can say, wow, this is an experience that I have because of COVID-19. I've been able to learn from others, talk to like my friends who are married and are like, oh girl, this is tough, or this is what's working for us. We're doing date nights and finding ways to get opportunities. Like what do I have an opportunity for? So we're not going outside. We're having all this time. Are we doing home Bible studies? Are we watching TV together? Are we laughing? Are we playing outside? Are we sitting on our swing? Like, what are we doing to really enjoy that time? There's one more thing that I wanted to go over from these that I thought was really, really poignant to go through. So if you are in a position where you're like, I don't know if I need to see somebody, I don't really know what's going on, I feel stuck, I feel kind of undone, things aren't for me where they need to be. If you go to mhascreening.org, they have a tool there for you to be screened and see kind of where you are, what's going on. There are tons of resources. Let's say that you do not have access outside of care. If you're in South Florida, you need somebody, and especially if you go to Pentab, Care Inc. is going to be where you need to go. If you are not in South Florida, if you are not in Florida, Open Path Collective is a service that allows people to access full fee clinicians. So my fee it's got 3 numbers before the 0 in it, just for a basic fee with me. And through Open Path, you can see me through Open Path for $30 to $60 a session. And it gives you access to clinicians who have sliding scale pro bono fees so that you can still get the services that you need. Go through your EAP if you're still working, and even if you were working before, all of your employers, even if you're furloughed, should be keeping your insurance benefits intact, and you should still have access to an EAP. I want to say 90% of the EAPs are now allowing you to come and get services for free to you for 5 to 10 services, for 5 to 10 sessions. So since COVID has happened, we've signed up for 11 EAPs as a practice, so that those who may not have been able to access this service prior to COVID, who may have had the money to pay us out of pocket and cash, can still come in. Find support groups. There are support groups all over the internet that clinicians are running for free. There's coronaviruscounseling.com, and it is for first responders. And by first, I don't necessarily mean the traditional term of police officers and fire, like it might have been interpreted in January. I mean, if you're going to work at Walmart, I mean, if you're a phlebotomist, I mean, if you're the janitor in the hospital, you are now considered a first responder. You can go through and access that service and deal with clinicians who are vetted to serve you, who have trauma backgrounds. If you are a firefighter, the thinredline.org is an organization based out of South Florida here for the Florida Firefighter Health and Safety Club. They'll give you access to a therapist who has gone through and done fire simulations and is vetted to work with your population, so you're not explaining your work to them over and over again. I want to go back to 2 things, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. I want to go back to giving ourselves grace, and I'm going to continue to say it because it's so hard. We are so kind to others and so hard on ourselves. We would never talk to our friends when we have to talk to ourselves, particularly as that we've done best that we can, you know? But there are days where it feels, particularly now, it feels very dark and very heavy. I will self-disclose, which I normally don't. Early on in, I want to say the 3rd week of coronavirus, I had 2, a death and a suicide attempt on my caseload. And I was like, I can't work. Like, I need to just take a break. And I literally canceled my day out, and I went and sat on my patio. I went on the patio once, I just cried, and I was like, God, I don't understand it. Like, why was I not able to help? Like, that feeling of helplessness that we are feeling as a service industry is so real. Like, that feeling of, okay, I did the best that I can. The questioning of, did I miss something? Like, all of these things play when there's any kind of loss and it's and you're an expert in that field. The loss feels like it's your loss. Like, I lost, I failed, I didn't. And the truth of the matter, that may not be what's actually happening. It more than likely is not our immediate loss. But that weight is still heavy. It still weighs down. It doesn't go away because we have another patient. So I had to say, I went on the patio, and I think my husband had never seen me cry about my job before. Because when I'm at the office, you know, he's at work. If I go home to shower and cry, he's not there. He's like, you just talk to people. So it was the first time that my husband got to see the impact of the work that I do has on me. So he's a lot more kind and patient surrounding when I'm like, man, I had a rough day. Because, you know, not just talking to people. So even having that, but I had to say, hey, Jessica, you are not okay. This is taking a toll on you. You need to take a step back. You need to find an opportunity to be different. And it's not because I'm weak or I'm a bad Christian or I don't trust God or I'm a horrible expert. It's because before I'm anything else, I'm a human. And loss affects healers and helpers. It affects us. Most of us are empaths. Most of us feel the energy in people around us. We want to serve. We show up because we care. It's not about our paychecks. This is really who it is, in the fiber of who we are as beings. And if we don't stop, when someone else shows up and needs our help, we're going to be unable to serve them. So self-care is the most selfless thing that we can do. Giving ourselves grace is the most selfless thing that we can do. Making time for ourselves, the most selfless thing that we can do. Utilizing our community. Getting on a girls' night chat. We've been doing stuff in our Young Ladies of Virtue. We had a game night on Saturday night. We got online for an hour. We played Kahoot together. And it's not a big thing, but to be in community and just to say, how was your week? What's going on? Man, this must have been tough. You also work in this field, you're supposed to be graduating this week. You missed prom, you're missing graduation, like all of these things, these milestones, they're real for everyone, and even for children. If we look across every age range, there's some level of loss. And if we as adults, those who have the vocabulary and the experience to navigate through stressors, imagine the littles, you know? So taking this to say, hey, you know what? Your kid is not bad. He's tired of being locked in a house. You know, your husband doesn't hate you. He just used to be able to go fishing with his friends. Like those little things that we were able to step out and do, affording to say, hey, you know what? I didn't mean to snap on you. I'm sorry. I need a moment. But really, 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 and I'm going to continue to say, like, really extending grace to ourselves, because without that, we're not going to make it. We can have all the protective equipment that we want. If we are hard on ourselves and we allow our mental and emotional wellness to go awry, the rest of the stuff doesn't matter. You know, you can have the greatest physical health and not be taking care of your mental health. It's going to take a toll on your body. So again, grace looks like body scans, taking time, putting stuff on your calendar, honoring the loss, sitting with your emotions, identifying the emotions, giving words to your emotions. When this happens, I feel this way. When I cannot choose, I feel this way. And saying, hey, it's okay to feel angry. It's okay to be depressed. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be overwhelmed. Because at the end of the day, this is a very sad time. This is a very overwhelming time. Can be a very depressing time. Heck, it could be a time where anxiety that you never had is on the fritz. And just saying, hey, being anxious about dying now is a real thing. Outside is unsafe. That's a real thing. Social distancing is needed. That's a real thing. I can't hug those that I love. Real things. And honoring the space that shows up in is vital. It is so imperative that we give ourselves grace. And as this changes and the climate turns to whatever it's going to be, continuing to extend that grace, because it's really all we have. We can't depend on, and let's say you're a hairdresser, you're in a service industry. You can't depend on your faithful Tuesday at 4 o'clock client because they can't come in. So everything that can be shaken has been shaken. So now what do we have? We have grace, we have hope, we have the opportunity to be kind to ourselves, we have the opportunity to show up and really take and hold that space for ourselves and those that we love. So I would like you to take away grace, honoring your loss, identifying what your feelings are, putting words to them, making small changes. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to check and see if we got any questions that have come in. Any questions, ladies? Hello, audience. Did any questions come in?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jessica. Okay. Karen, want to use this opportunity just to say thank you for this talk on self-care or superhero therapist. We really appreciate the points that you have made and want to remind the other members who are watching via eCampus or any of the streaming platforms that you can send in questions. We can see them. A matter of fact, I'm in right now. So if you send a question in, we can pose it to Jessica. But I have a question for you, Jessica.
Yes, ma'am.
In light of, this whole COVID crisis, a big part of self-care, as you mentioned, is just really, in few words that you have said, is being positive. How do I maintain positivity, especially if I see my clients suffering? If I'm in healthcare, I see my patients are dying. How do I maintain positivity as a part of my self-care?
So what I tell my clients and I tell myself, I go back to that grace. So what's one thing that you did? So people's family members aren't allowed in there. Did you hold somebody's hand while they died? Did you smile at somebody when they got the news that you were out of ventilators? Did you hold space and tell somebody that, okay, I get it, this sucks? Did you normalize an experience? Were you present for yourself? Did you have a moment to say, oh my gosh, this sucks, and I cried? Like, what went well? What did you do well? How did you care for yourself or somebody else? How were you selfless? So I know for the therapist that we have, like, we take a moment, we're in group chat, we're like, oh my gosh, today was rough. Do I need to pray? What do you need? We have a community. So finding the things that you would have done normally, like maybe you would have gone out for ice cream, maybe having ice cream in your home, making that small change and adapting. So the sadness is not going to go away. the brevity of death and dying and depression and suicidality and anxiety that are on the rise aren't going away. There's no fix to that. We can't just smear, hope and say something better, but we can say, let's find something that's working and do more of that.
Hi, Jessica. Good.
Hi, Michelle.
And thank you again. My name is Michelle Ann Anita. I have a quick question. For those that are not essential workers, there is a big part of coping for those who are essential is just feeling appreciated. And you see a lot of donations now being made to firefighters, to healthcare providers, to nurses, in the hospitals. But what about those essential workers that are not really getting recognized? For us as, for those that are non-essential workers, I'm talking about, you mentioned this, the person that works at Walmart, or mail carrier who is still coming out with our meals, those that are still delivering food, right? For those that are not feeling appreciated, how do they cope with what's going on? Because feeling appreciated is also a big part of,
oh my gosh,
going through this. So how do those who are non-essential workers show appreciation to those, and for those who are not feeling appreciated, how do they manage all of that, what's going on?
So I know for me that I have been smiling under my mask more than ever before, because I know, I learned really on in my career in addictions that I didn't know whose door of death in life I was standing in, so I spent a lot of time smiling. So smiles and thank yous go so far. They go so far. I really hate essential versus non-essential workers. I feel like we're all essential. I think that's very the undertone means that one person matters. I personally, if we're allowed to say hate in church streams,
yeah, thank you for that.
Right. I greatly dislike, because I feel like we're all essential.
Yes.
I feel like, and I was on a live last week, and I was like, in January, we didn't think janitors were essential. They weren't like, oh my gosh, the janitors here. We were like, the CEOs who's going to be honored. Those janitors keeping us alive right now. Our sanitation workers are taking up our trash, keeping us alive. So I feel like, and I thought this is a great equalizer, because we looked at people who maybe were in lower income as well. They just wanted a handout. Now that we all need a handout, we've been looking. I know I applied for the EIDL for my business. I know that we were looking for our $1,200 check, and it wasn't an issue because I didn't work. So I feel like this is an opportunity for us to really be like a human race. And we found some way, again, to make it some kind of classist, fascist of what we're going to do. I believe everyone's essential. I think the person that is with my father-in-law, changing him or asking him what he wants for lunch is essential. I think that went to a farm to pick the asparagus I'm going to eat is essential. I may never see that person. So I think where it comes down to for the food stuff, we pray over our food. We pray that every hand that's touched our food is blessed. Every person that showed to make sure that food was possible was blessed. And that goes from the person who planted the seed to the person who put it on the shelf, to the person that put it in a bag for us. We pray, and they may never hear our thank you. They may never be able to get that appreciation. But I feel like those smiles go so far. I feel like being a human goes so far, being a decent human, being kind and compassionate, that goes far. I think in light of, we've seen so much more of that. We've seen so much more of just genuine human goodness and kindness. And it may not be directed to you, because it may not say, oh, well, therapists. I keep hearing therapists are first responders. We have been. But I'm not going to go through and say, well, because you didn't mention social workers, I'm talking to you. At the end of the day, if I sit in one person's story of death and life, and I have to choose life a day or an hour or a session, I win. I don't need to fly a banner about saying, hey, I did that. So there's got to be also a sense of autonomy to say, hey, you know what? I showed up. It's scary outside. I have small kids. I left my house to do this job. It's about more than a check, and being able to say what I do matters. People think that I'm fat. I think that I'm beautiful. I think that I think that I'm perfectly shaped. I think I'm real bad. But for somebody else, that somebody will call him fat, might bother them. Okay. So it doesn't bother me in that sense, right? So identifying, okay, if I may not need to look for it externally, internally, what joy am I getting from being of service? I hope that answered your question. That was a long response.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think simply just, as you mentioned, saying thank you, just really verbalizing our appreciation to those who we don't normally do would definitely go along. Thank you for that, Jessica. And I
No
love
worries.
not essential versus essential, because we're all essential. We may not be
Right.
plans, every day, but we are all essential. So I love that reframing. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm Anita. Hi, everybody. I have a question, but I'm going to ask a question that came in from one of the viewers first. Okay. The question is, how does one relate to or calm their child during this COVID-19 crisis?
So I am a part of a group called Trust Village. It's not called Trust Village. I'm going to look it up on my phone. And he is absolutely amazing. His name is Edvaro Archer, and they've got 3 littles, and they go through almost every day different things on it's called Bridge to Parenting on Facebook. They have tons and tons and tons of things to do, activities, therapeutic interventions, but understanding, and a lot of us didn't go to school, so we don't know who Erickson is and what he did, but understanding where your kid is developmentally. Does your kid need you to spend time hugging them or holding their hand or sitting down for lunch for them? Like, what does your child need? Children are not just bad. They're not just sensitive. They have a need, and their behavior is expressing to you their need. It is our jobs as adults to figure out what their behavior is saying and put words to it and respond to them. So maybe they're not throwing a tantrum. Maybe they're just lonely. Maybe they're overwhelmed. Maybe they miss their friends. They don't have the words to say, I miss my friends. I really need recess. Nap time is a necessity for me. And us figuring out as adults and looking at what that languaging is like for that child is imperative in order to be able to help. But if you don't have that skill set, you don't have the money to go to a therapist. Edvaro Archer, again, the group is called Bridge to Parenting on Facebook. Eddie is a therapist. He's a Christian. He used to actually be the clinical director of 4 kids here in South Florida. And his wife have 3 littles, and they spend they just did, I think, a 6-day course on how to navigate through coronavirus with children. Right now, they're doing day 1 of a parenting challenge and talking about the things they can go through and do to help you navigate through parenting. So I would say groups like Eddie's group, where you're getting actual information with clinicians. There's like 40 clinicians in there. I'm in the group that are saying, hey, try this, do that. And it's free to you. We're not saying send us money for a strategy session. We're saying, hey, you have this question. Here's a clinical response, a clinical intervention that's going to help you navigate through, because everyone's not a therapist. Everyone's not a first grade teacher. And giving yourself, again, the grace to say, oh my gosh, I've locked myself in the bathroom or in the closet. I'm not a bad parent. I have clients who will turn the shower water on for session and sit on the floor so their parents, their kids think they're in their shower. And they will wait till their kids go to the shower. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're not a bad parent to take time for yourself. Like, let's address those narratives, because what's happening right now is we have what's called automatic negative thought. If I'm not a Pinterest parent, if I'm not going through and making these beautiful bento box lunches with little cutout squares and smiley face Mickey Mouse pancakes, I suck as a human. And that's not the reality. The reality is you guys are trying to get through a pandemic. We're trying to survive. And whatever that looks like for you, I'm not saying abuse and let your kids, but I am saying if that means that they're going to get peanut butter and jelly sandwiches instead of maybe rice, beans, and meat tonight, they're going to eat. It's not going to kill them unless they have a peanut allergy. And you can say, hey, they ate, and plan again for tomorrow. But really, again, when we talk about inserting that grace, like, this is the first time you've been a 24/7 parent. This is unless you were homeschooled, this is your first time being around your kids and your family all day long. Plus your job stress. Like, it's like, oh, we don't have to drive to work. Okay, well, that commute might have been therapeutic for you, but now you have all these other things and busyness and noise surrounding what would have been maybe a quiet space for you. So I would say, again, give yourself grace.
Okay, thank you for answering that viewer's question. And another one just popped up. You mentioned earlier about avoiding toxicity as a means of coping, especially during this time. Would you suggest limiting how often I watch the daily news?
Oh my gosh, I don't even watch the news. Like, for the first time in a decade, logged out of Facebook. And I don't have like political stuff on my Facebook. But if I see one more like Black body just dying because they were Black during coronavirus, I'm going to lose it. Like, it is not safe for me. It is not good for my emotional well-being to watch the disparity of Black people dying to coronavirus that have the same access that our white and Spanish other counterparts have. I cannot for my well-being do that. So when your body tells you in your body, this is a trigger and I don't need to have access to that, cut it off. You have the remote, you pay your own cable bill, you don't have to access Facebook. You can unfollow, unfriend, delete, block, turn off, throw away, whatever you would like, but do what serves you well. And if that bite says, hey, Facebook is the trigger, turn Facebook off. It'll be there when you come back.
But as a follow-up to that, Jess, what if does that not depend on the individual's personality and need to know? Because what if not engaging with the news causes you anxiety because you need to know what's happening?
And that's when we go back to our body scans and what we need. And there's no blank. It's what we need individually. So for me, I need not watch the news on a regular day, forget during the pandemic. So understanding what you need and what works for you and getting to know yourself. So what happens is we don't know what we need and what we like because we're just so busy doing and going. This is an opportunity to get to know yourself, to know what works and what doesn't work for you. I've learned that I need space and quiet and creativity to work. I was not aware of that being a need for me prior to COVID. So I had to now I work overnight so I can have what I need to work. It's not an issue if I'm weak and I can't create. It's okay, well, I create better in this environment and I'm going to do this. So if you know that you need information, how much information do you need? Do you need 4 hours of watching CNN? Do you need to research what's going on at NIH? Do you need to be looking at the strains of coronavirus as they're coming out? Is that a need or do you just want to know? And if that need is feeding something that's not healthy for you, take a step back and try maybe not watching the news at 11 o'clock. Try catching it on the Facebook Live, the snippet that they give you on NBC6.
All right, wonderful, Jessica. And
I have a question.
You have a question, Esther?
Yeah.
All right, so we have 4 minutes to close
Okay.
in, and we want to end in at 8:30. So shoot your question in, Jessica.
Hi, Jessica. So what would you suggest or how could we help our seasoned saints, our senior citizens, our elderly population? A lot of them have been through so many other things in life, yet don't necessarily buy into the concept of self-care. And a lot of their quote unquote self-care was socializing, going to church, being with their peers. This is a time where they almost can't go out the front door.
Right.
What could we say to them, or how do we encourage that self-care and being connected with everyone still and still feeling like they're a productive part of society during this time?
So I would say this is an opportunity for us to teach them new things. So like we had our youth meeting on Friday night. It was Pastor's first Zoom call. When he could swipe and see faces, you should have seen the elation. He was like, oh my gosh, look at so-and-so, whoa! Like, and it seems small because we're used to technology. Like at our age range, it's not a big thing. But teaching them how to be connected. Showing them, okay, you're going to tune into this live stream. You can type your answer. Somebody's going to respond to you. Like being creative. Then we were creative with our children who may not have the words as elder people, as seasoned saints. They don't have the words to say that I need this connection. It was just always there. They were born in the church pew, and you go to church on Sunday night, Wednesday night, Sunday morning. You show up for a prayer meeting every morning. Those things that you do. Okay, but now if I introduce you to the opportunity to maybe pray via Zoom, or use WhatsApp and get on the call with 2 of your closest friends and have that conversation, or get an audiobook, or order through Amazon Prime. Like, it's not like everything is gone. It's more about making creative ways to access what we need to have done. So I would say teach them things, spend time. So like my father-in-law up until this point was not using FaceTime. When they locked down Maryland, your boy is an avid, you hear me, avid, the boy is pro at FaceTime. Because now he's learned it. He calls. We have a schedule for him. Everybody calls in to check on him. We've got this thing going on, and he's constantly in contact. So we've been creative. So my sister-in-law, they do praise and worship every morning with their kids. They call Pops every morning for praise and worship. So he gets to watch his grandkids worship. And it's not the same as being there, but they have that access and they're caring for themselves and their community. At that age, their desire is to give back into the generation after them. So it's not really about getting manicures and pedicures and haircuts and being fly. Like, that doesn't matter to them. How's my grandbaby doing? Are you hungry? Can I cook for you? Making meals and hanging them on the gate for your family to pick up. Then watching them enjoy the meal. You have still having Sunday dinner. Everyone cook at home, get on FaceTime and have that. You can still have community different sense.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Wonderful, wonderful. Good stuff. Thank you so much, Jessica. On behalf of our pastor, Pastor Stewart, and GIVEPENTAB family, we just want to say thank you. We have definitely gained a lot, and I wish this conversation could be much longer, but unfortunately, every good thing comes to an end, right? So
Indeed.
thanks to the live audience, and I just want to thank these ladies that you see here, part of a very supportive team of mental health professionals that help to ground us. And this is what we have, our support system. This is what our support system looks like. So I thank and love each of you. Now, I definitely want to remind our audience just before we close out that it is Mental Health Awareness Month, and green is the color that we wear for the month. So at some point, when whatever you're doing in the circles that you will be, the support groups that you have, wear something green representing that. Visit pentab.org or careinconline.org, and you will see a schedule of some other amazing presentations coming up. This Wednesday, conversation with our pastors. So look out for that. Very excited about that one. We have also coming up children's presentation with our own Dr. Anita right there. And we have guest presenters who will be doing various topics on toxicity, and other means of just staying healthy during this time of COVID crisis and even afterwards. So thank you all again. Thank you so much, Jessica. Thanks to the media team. Thanks to everyone who have posed the questions and had tuned in joining us, and hope to see you all this Wednesday at 7:30 for our next session, which is conversation with our pastors.
Indeed.
God bless you, and thank you.
Oh, sorry. If there was a question that was not answered that you need me to answer, please email me, Jessica, or comment below whatever the deal. I'll go back through and I'll read them. I'll respond to them. You guys can email me, jessica@swsocialsupport.com. If you guys need a therapist, we have therapists in our practice that are licensed in Florida, New Jersey, and Minnesota. And our website's www.swsocialsupport.com. And we'd be really glad to serve you or point you towards somebody that can serve you.
Absolutely. So thank you. That's another community resort. And Jessica, just repeat your email address again, please.
Jessica@swsocialsupport.com. I'll go into the eCampus and under the Facebook and the YouTube page and type that in. We'll see the media team can pin that. So if there's any questions that I don't see, I'll be sure to watch this for us. We can answer questions and kind of come in and chime in. I'll put the link to Eddie's group and things of that nature. If you need to find me, Jessica@swsocialsupport.com.
Wonderful. So thank you again, everyone. God bless you, and do have a peaceful and restful night.
Indeed.
Good night, ladies.
Good night.
Thanks, Jessica.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for being my audience. You're so beautiful.
Jessica.